My name is Tero Mustonen. I work for Snowchange Cooperative. That's an NGO based in Finland, but with an Arctic reach. So we have a network of indigenous and local communities around the Arctic, and I have been working for Snowchange for 22 years. So official Snowchange partners with and co-leads the work package 4, which is the pilot services, and then we have also a mandate to work with work package 1, mostly on community-based monitoring, because a lot of the work package 1 mission has to do how do we get to a better place in overall monitoring, and then I'm here and there in terms of coordinating and liaison between the indigenous knowledge holders and scientists. A lot of the conversations for community-based monitoring started in the Arctic in early 2000s. CAF, Conservation for the Arctic Flora and Fauna, had an idea that it should be done, or this community-based monitoring should be done all across the Arctic, even though it had been put into action already in Canada, for example, for about 25 years at the time, or 20 years. With organizations like the Arctic Borderlands Co-op, and following the land claims with the Inuvialuit people, they had a big mission on inclusion of local and indigenous knowledge. And then let's fast forward 15 years into Arctic Passion, and now whole work packages are devoted, or large portions of the budget and actions are devoted to trying to advance community-based monitoring. So the concept has been moving forwards a lot. However, the Arctic comes in many forms. The socio-political context in the 8 countries and over 40 different indigenous groups is very varied. But if we try to think in Arctic Passion about community-based monitoring, 1 year has passed, and those communities that have consented and indigenous organizations to be partners and collaborate have focused, for example, on urgencies they feel are important. And of course we know the Arctic is on fire. There's massive fire events, permafrost melt events, oceans are becoming more acidic. We have species like the Arctic fox in the Finnish north, probably extinct or has been missing for a long time. Arctic char, salmon, trout are becoming into the risk zone because the temperature of waters are very warm. And all of these points, for example these examples, are being missed out or incompletely monitored by the existing monitoring networks. Mainly I'm talking about scale. We know the big story, for example from remote sensing and monitoring missions with the birds in the sky and science expeditions, but we don't get constant monitoring and scalable significance. Maybe that's the word that's the most important one, if it's done well. So in short, we have seen in the first year a lot of documentation of sinkholes, sea ice events and river erosion, for example in Alaska with Unalakleet. They have a great concern about what's going on with the sea ice. We have started to work with the Gwich'in and the Tahltan in northern Canada. They have established a historical timeline of trying to position present change into an historical, but for the most part unknown timeline, in the sense that what are the changes of today compared to the indigenous knowledge from 1800s, early 1900s, and then finally where are we heading from here. Or the final example that I can probably give is action that the Sami people were advancing over the past year on microplastics. So there had been for years a big concern in the Naden or Naatama River with the Scott Sami, led by Pauliina Fedorov in this context, but there was a lot of unknowns. Are they there? If they are, how bad it might be, and so on. And by collaborating on community-based monitoring with the Sami reindeer herders, fishermen and women, they were able to point important locations in the Naatama watershed where they are suspecting, and here we come to a very complex notion, they are feeling something's wrong. And then Snowchange was able to go forwards and appoint local and scientific staff to measure, are there microplastics there? And yes, indeed, this led to a novel discovery for the first time in the European Arctic of freshwater microplastics, 6 polymers, and very disturbing findings in the most remote parts of Finland. And this is probably a great example in my mind on how, if it's done well, community-based monitoring can yield novel discoveries, new baselines. There's also a section that I'll just mention, which is on cultural indicators. For example, the Sami people have a linguistic knowledge of different kinds of Atlantic salmon that's not corresponding one-on-one with the scientific small